Well, we've almost made it. We're starting this week Sefer Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, the last book of the Torah. And just as we've been getting through the entire story of wandering through the desert and about to head into the land of Israel, so too has the people of Israel, Bnei Israel, reached the Jordan River, ready to head in and settle the land that God has set aside for them. And so, Moses, like any good rabbi on Yom Kippur knows, he's got all of the people. This is the time for a really good sermon. And after all, this generation really needs it. They aren't the ones who left Egypt 40 years ago. They didn't see the miracles at the sea and the plagues in Egypt. They were not the ones who committed the sins of the calf and learned its lessons. They're not the ones who heard God's voice from Sinai. And so Moses has to share all of those things as they head into this new generation, the land that has been promised to them, so that they can become the Jewish future. And so the Torah tells us, Be'ever hayarden, be'eretz Moav, ho'il Moshe be'er et haTorah hazot lemor. On the side of the Jordan River, in the land of Moab, Moses undertook to expound this Torah, this teaching. Now that word be'er, that expounding, that explaining of the Torah, Rashi tells us that what that means is that Moses spoke in 70 languages to explain the Torah. There were 70 nations in the world, and so Moses was speaking in every language so the Torah could be understood by all. And that's a great thing to think about the Torah, that it has these universal truths, something that speaks to all of us and is meant for the entire world, to make the entire world better. When the Torah teaches, Ve'ahavta l're'echa kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. Or when it teaches, Lo tirtzach, do not kill. Lo tignov, do not steal. That these are universal messages that better all of us. What a wonderful message that Rashi has there. But a later commentator, Haktav VaKabbalah in the 18th century, points out a small problem with Rashi's understanding. Moses' audience is not the entire world. He's sitting in the desert talking to the Jewish people, and they all speak Hebrew at that point. So it can't possibly mean, or at least it would be unnecessary for Moses to speak in so many languages. Instead, says Haktav VaKabbalah, what it means is that Moses was speaking with 70 intentions, that there were 70 layers of meaning. This number 70 really means infinite, means all of it. And so for this particularly Jewish audience, while they're hearing also these universal messages of love, of pursuing peace, of pursuing justice, of acting as good people, are also each of us hearing it with a different level of understanding, with a different intention, that the same Torah can say to us, honor and keep the Shabbat. And that two Jewish people might both look at that and end up with a way of honoring and keeping the sanctity and the joy and the beauty of Shabbat, but still might end up doing it in different ways, because those 70 languages are 70 different ways to relate to and understand the Torah. And those are the lessons that are good for us today as well, because we, like the generation about to cross into the river and head into Israel, we were not physically at Sinai. We were not physically walking through the split sea. We did not experience the plagues, but we still have that Torah that Moses is explaining and expounding. And while it carries those universal messages, we can take those messages and become better people. We can also take each in our understanding something that becomes recognizably Judaism together, each in our own way, in a way that is personally relevant and personally meaningful. And that is Moses explaining and expounding, and that is the message for us, that we can continue to explain and expound and find the meaning of the Torah for ourselves and live it in our lives each day. So this Shabbat, I encourage you, please pick up a Chumash, look in the Torah itself and read a little bit. Find in it, even if it's just one word, a message that sits for you, that will strengthen who you are as a person, make you better, and strengthen your Judaism in you, because that is how we end up in the land together. Shabbat Shalom.